up, motherfucker?
Hey, what's up? What's up? March 12th, 2026. I was thinking I was going to do a morning stream and then a late night stream, but it looks like today we had some action. So I waited for the close to finish and then see where we ended up. And it looks like we're about to break down. Tomorrow we'll have PCE numbers, so we'll have another set of inflation numbers. This one delayed though, because the shutdown made everything for this piece of data, the PCE inflation data, the personal consumption expenditure index or whatever it's called. This one is the one that the Federal Reserve follows. This is the more important inflation number. And it's Friday morning, 1 hour before the open. So 9:30 Eastern Daylight Time. 8:30, I think, right? 8:30. Yeah. Daylight Eastern Time. Eastern Daylight Time. So, this might do it because the CPI yesterday, boring. It was as expected, so nothing happened. Nothing new on the oil front yesterday. Oracle's earnings didn't do anything with the NASDAQ, either up or down. So, yeah, yesterday I decided to start shorting semiconductors again because, bro, we only have Micron left. There's only one company left in semiconductors. That would be important. So I said, well, we already got NVIDIA. You already got Broadcom. You got Marvell. You also have the big seven stocks: Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Tesla, Meta. So what's left? There's nothing left. If earnings doesn't pump things, and the way the NASDAQ has been looking lately, it looks like it's about to break down now. This is a confirmation today that it is about to break down. So when you get a follow through tomorrow, if tomorrow something happens with Iran or inflation, then we are about to fall. We are about to fall deep into the pits of hell because this is it. It looks very weak here. Now let me show you where the drawings are. This is what it looks like. Okay, let me take away the volume profile stuff. Let me take away, oops, I don't want to delete them. Let me just hide them. And just look at this. Just look at the way this Wyckoff chart looks like. Look how similar it looks, right? We got this. We have the reaction. You got a top right up here. So let me push this out a little bit. How about that? This was that last up thrust. You see that? This was probably the last up thrust test. And now we're down here. So it's more looking like last point of supply. So it looks more like this over here. And then the rest of the story is that once you got this completed, this Wyckoff completed, guess where we're going to go? We are going down. Down, down, down. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. That's it. So this is what I've been waiting for. If this happens, then I look at all the boomer stocks I picked out and then give a list. So I'm going to start my Substack and basically say, you buy this stock at this price. You buy this stock at this price. So any of you boomers waiting to buy stocks, you listen to what I tell you on my Substack and exactly find where these stocks will get to and you buy them up. Okay? Because this will bring down everything. So not only tech companies, but everything else. Because right now, the only thing going up is oil stocks. That's it. And a subset of the oil stocks. So I'm telling you guys right now that what's probably going to be, because you look at how UwU reacted today. So this is what I've been saying. I think right now, I recommend you do 2/3. You move out of UwU and do 2/3 of NRGU. So the next time this thing comes back down, you reallocate right here. You buy 2/3 of your capital into NRGU, okay? And 1/3 of it goes into Gush. That's it. I think this combination will probably be the best going forward for now. If I see something different, we'll revisit again. But I think so long as oil stays around this 90 area, that's probably where we're going to be. The longer we stay in war conditions with Iran into Nowruz, the Iranian New Year's next week. Okay, so something big is probably going to happen. There's going to be a big show off of that. Then we'll be ready for this condition. So, okay, that's what we're going to do. For this, you could see the same thing with semiconductors. Same looking picture here. I think we're just going to fall through tomorrow if it's confirmed. And then you look at the SPY, you see that. Yeah, I think for the most part, it is about to break down. Okay, so let me give you the targets for the thing. What should I do? Sell oil? Yeah, I mean, you should have sold it today, I'm guessing. Like 45 is pretty good price for what you're going to get. I don't know what's going to happen over the weekend. I mean, we're going to go to Friday into the weekend. No clue, because like you'd rather be in cash so that you can just buy up NRGU and Gush as a replacement sometime down the line. That's what I'm thinking. So that's the hard part, right? Like trying to figure out where you want to get out of this to replace with the other. That's the hard part. So let's see, 2/3 into this plus 1/3 into Gush. I think this is where we're going to have to be at. So this is my prescription right now. Convert UwU into 2/3 NRGU and 1/3 Gush. What's up, guy, bro, idiot? What's up? How's it going? All right. So that's the game plan, okay? That's the game plan. So any of you guys in cash, stay in cash. Just enjoy the fun while everyone's freaking out. That's how we're gonna do it. All right. So, all right. Put up my music and let's play some videos first, so you see what I mean. So the Wyckoff guys here.
Here is just a swing trading point figure count. You can see that I took that light blue line represents that smaller distribution type structure I was noticing on the vertical daily chart. And that's 19 columns, accounts down 60.50 to 58.50. You can see the sign of weakness out of that support area around 6,800. And the one thing that I would say, Ramon, is that at least the volume didn't appreciably expand as it broke. But it doesn't need to. A volume doesn't need to just be blowout volume, because prices, there's an old saying, prices can fall from their own weight. You need volume to drive prices up, but prices can drop from their own weight. So here you are seeing what seemingly looks like a resolution down below key support. And so we've already addressed the issue of what it needs to do to rally back in. And then there's a larger count which goes back to that buying climax in late October, 28 calls, and that counts down 5,400 to 5,600.
All right, let's go look at how things are. Let me take away this. So let's look at the volume profile here. So this is the SPY. I took the volume profile of the area when it broke out here in November 2023. We broke out from this top of July 2023. We finally got up into it and then broke out. So from here into February 2025, just before the tariff tantrums, the fair price was 476, right? And then the upper bound of the distribution here is 553. Okay, so you can see, like, when the tariff tantrum happened, the first stop was just above this 55.3. So, and then once we broke through, we went zoom right towards this point of control at 474. Okay, now we got out and then we broke above, okay, back in July and then we started moving up. And then most of the time we've been hanging out here since October, between 665 and 696, bouncing up and down, up and down. And you can see we are going back below this distribution range. So where most of the volume says that price was around here, now we're going below it, and we're gonna revisit these areas where we had these huge red bars with a lot of volume. Okay, that's why they're so thick. This is what set the tone. This was when Nvidia reported earnings last time. It popped up for the NASDAQ, and then it crashed right throughout the whole day. And then this time was, I forgot what this was, the October one. It was some other news that I just forgot. Must be some tariff shit. I don't know, whatever it was. But you can see like they're parallel, right? This area is dangerous. Okay, we escaped it twice. November was the time that it could have went really bad, but we escaped it. So now we revisit it because Oracle. This was because of Oracle. Oracle reported earnings, and then all of a sudden, the NASDAQ just fell through with the semiconductors on Friday for some other reason. Maybe news, maybe nothing. Maybe it was just because the bond market in Oracle was just so crazy. Yeah, it just fell through, but it didn't pierce it. Okay, we tagged that line 672, and we went back up, and we started going zigzag, 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 zigzag for months on end. And this is the first time we've seen another weakness where now we stay below it. Because on Monday, we got an easy pop. That was an easy trade. You go below it, you go long. But this time around, we went below it and we stayed down. So this is why I waited till the close to say, watch this. Because if tomorrow morning, 8:30, we have PCE numbers, the inflation numbers that take into account medical expenditures, because PCE has different weightings than the CPI numbers, and it also includes employer payments for employees' insurance policy. So that takes that into account. So it takes into account a lot of inflation that comes from medical expenditures. So this here, if it starts retreating lower and lower and lower back down here, guess what? We have the weekend. So let's say it ends over here at 652. You're ripe for a breakdown on Monday, and it'll be a Black Monday, right? This will be the time to see it crash. And this will be it, right before Persian New Year's, okay? You see it go down here, and then what's going to happen is it's going to try to zigzag, zigzag, zigzag down here for the rest of the week into Friday. And if Friday happens, and if Iran does something for New Year's, or the US wants to do something for the New Year's, or Israel does something for the New Year's in Iran, then that's it. Whatever that may be, that could be enough to just freak everyone out and crash it all the way back to 600. So he gave you some targets, right? He said initially we should be maybe around I guess 640 to 650, somewhere here, right? That'll be the initial one. But then the longer count, he said, well, we could just end up down here at the top of this line at 550. That's where the next levels are. So let's say we survive this for most of the next week, but then on Friday we drop down here. Well, then the next stop will be we drop down back down here. So by the time we get into tax season, peak tax season in April, we should be down all the way here, and people will be wondering, shit, what the hell do I do now? For the people that didn't take profit back up here, well, you're gonna suffer. And these guys probably have to pay taxes and say, whoa, man, I made so much money last year, but I gotta pay all these taxes now. Well, I gotta cash out. And that will exacerbate things, right? As they cash out to pay the IRS so that they have their checking accounts filled. Yeah, maybe that's what will drive this thing lower and lower and lower. So yeah, maybe I could see it at 550 at the worst case on the SPY. In that case, that's when we start looking for when to buy. So yes, next week into the end of March, I'll be looking at what the prices I'm looking at targeting for most of the boomer portfolio, okay? And that's where I'm going to be looking at. So once we get to this crash, there'll be a nice time to buy the dip for all the companies I'm looking at. But right now, the only companies I would recommend is still oil. And we also have a newcomer here. We have fertilizer. I briefly mentioned CF 2 days ago because I played a video and they mentioned fertilizer. And I'm like, well, you know, I know some fertilizer stocks that I've been eyeing for a return because these stocks were pretty good from COVID up into the Ukraine war. So they had that nice push up into the Ukraine war. And now we have CF here this week, 36% on CF. So this is where we want to be. Okay? So this is where we want to be. I think that's all I'm going to say too much about. I have some other ones like LXU I'm looking at, IPI, Intrepid Potash. Those are my top 3. We have some other ones like MOS Mosaic, a little bit weaker, UAN, maybe I'll add this one, NTR, Nutrien. So this one's a little bit more roller coaster like, so maybe it's a good thing to get, but if oil comes back down, maybe not. You know, so this is where everything is because they're not getting any urea for fertilizer. So I believe India is kind of like screaming for fertilizer help from other countries right now since they have a big population to feed. Okay, so anyway, so let's look at what the oil companies are. We have Occidental, Oxy, OXY, Valero, VLO, and MPC, Marathon Petroleum. So these top 3 are doing pretty well. We also have Phillips 66. So those are heavily weighted in NRGU. That's why I say you got to move to NRGU. Okay, so we're moving from oil U to 2/3 NRGU and 1/3 Gush. All right, this is where we're gonna be now. So that's it. I think I'm done there. If we're gonna short, so if you're gonna short with me, you use SOXS. SOXS right now is at $41.75. If things go well for this, we can go up another 50 to 100% probably on this one. All right, shouldn't be too hard to get. Let's look at how Bitcoin proxy MSTR is doing fine, so I wouldn't be worried. If you're long MSTR, I guess you should be prepared for worst case scenario, a retest of 122, but maybe nothing will happen too much. And IGV software, you can see like maybe it's going to be heading back down to 82 or 80, but maybe that's the only place where we're going to have issues at. So anybody looking for software, I'm going to have to add software companies to the list. Last stream, you know, a lot of you guys were giving me some tickers. I know about those tickers, so yes, I will look at them if this thing holds up. If IGV does better than SOXS, meaning semiconductors is dropping a lot, but IGV is holding or dropping less than that, and when it recovers, when the NASDAQ finally recovers, you'll see the software guys move up quickly and bounce compared to semiconductors. So I think IGV will take over. And also FDN, the internet communications sector, also I want to see this thing also not make a new low. It kind of holds at 230 here on FDN. If it does that, then look, you see all these people that bought out here. Did they buy or did they sell? That's the question, right? If they did buy, then I better see a lot of people buying if it goes under 236 into 230. I want to see more people buy, and that will give it the support it needs. So then I know that internet communications, software, cloud computing, data centers are all being bought up, even while semiconductors start going down. Because the only reason semiconductors went up this year from late December was because of few stocks. And those stocks are, like Lumentum, Sienna, Coherent, AOI, Teradyne, Air Test Systems, Micron, SanDisk, Western Digital, Seagate. So memory, disks, and optical fiber, optical cables, glass. So this is kind of like the sideshow of semiconductors, not the main show, not the CPUs, not the GPUs, not Intel, not NVIDIA, not TSMC. No, those guys were kind of like, yeah, we're going up, but not really going up, not really strong, Or some of them, like NVIDIA, just still going sideways, not helping at all. And then you have Intel, which is like, okay, trying, but still sideways. What else? Yeah, that's basically the main ones. AMD, I think, AMD is more of like down. So this is not even barely sideways. This was like, blah. We're going to the bottom of this bar here. So the October pop, when Intel was saying like, or AM, I don't know what was the news. It had something in relationship with Intel and AMD. They were going to do some partnerships or something, or TSMC. And it was just like, okay, you got this nice pop, but then you just zigzag around it. And then when you got earnings, you just dropped and stayed below. So it'll definitely close this gap and drop back down again. And you probably can get AMD at a better price. But overall, I don't think I'm interested in semiconductors anymore like last year. Last year, I just did SOXL. Most of the time, I just turned off my brain. Anytime it went up to a new high, I would sell. Anytime it went to a next low, I would buy back up. Next new high, sell. And that was the end of it. I think this was my last sell, was like over here when it made this last high. But then it just could not make it. When you see this red bar here, it was like, man, I think the game's over. Like, either you just keep on going up right now, or I don't think you're going to make it. And now we're down here because I've just been shorting this thing. So, yeah, I shorted a little bit here, but I did more shorting here. And then this time, if we break down, I'm just going to keep adding more and more XOXS and short it all the way back down. So, nothing else I could say. I've just been waiting mostly in cash. I told you guys that gold, gold miners, stocks, it itself didn't get anywhere, right? It's basically going sideways. So GDXU was the place that I mostly stayed around up until this point here, into mid-January, where I'm like, bruh, this is enough. This is probably the end. It's time to get the hell out and then wait and see what happens. We're right back here at 275 on GDXU. So this is 3x leverage of gold miners. If you think gold miners are going to go anywhere, wait till the end of the year, okay, when the dollar is getting weakened again, because right now, everyone's running back to the dollar. So this is Dixie, DXY, this is the dollar. Here, let me put in the futures market so you can see the volume. Okay, you see that? A lot of people were buying down here. They're buying more up here. They're running to the dollar. They're getting out of the euros, Swiss francs, British pounds, and Canadian dollars. They're getting the hell out. So, Japanese yen. So this is all going to be a problem. Okay, this is going to hurt too. And the same thing with bonds. If you look at long bonds, long treasury bonds, we're back down here, man. We just gave up everything we gained up here. So nobody's running to bonds. They're running into dollars and oil. So this is not good. What this means is that if you look at the 10-year yield, TNX, yields are going back up. So we're at 4.27% on 10-year. And if we keep going up back up to 5%, that means the market expects the Federal Reserve to stay high or even crank it up. And I think, Jerome Powell might give an FU to Trump, and before he gets kicked out in May, he's going to do a raise or maybe 2 raises of the interest rates. Who knows? He might surprise the market. He might say, whoa, bro, oil is staying sticky, so I better not wait until I see oil prices leak into inflation, because also fertilizer prices are going up, so food prices are going to go up. Food price, energy prices are moving up. Then yep, I'm just going to raise interest rates ahead of time. And that gives you that also is an FU to Trump before his replacement comes in, and yeah, that could further crash the markets, especially in tech. Okay, so if any of you are watching tech and waiting to buy something, that'll be the right time to buy. So wait for this month and April when the Federal Reserve does its thing. I think next week Powell will talk on Wednesday. Maybe I think it's next week. Yeah, so that's it, man. That's it, guys. Get ready. All right. Here's another video.
We see how into the impulse right here, supply starts to come in, more supply here, that produces initial change of behavior, higher highs, higher lows, that's the pattern. And we see in the same type of idea. So this is NASDAQ, so the same idea here after this initial change of behavior. And then from 4 to 5, we have a move down, but it still goes to the higher low. And that's like a tricky pattern here, because you still see in uptrend characteristics, but you're already showing the weakness.
So what they're doing is like they like to look at analogs. So patterns always kind of like repeat in a fractal manner. So they like to look at other stocks or other securities, bonds, whatever, crypto. And because it's all about behavior, right? So you go in waves. So I haven't talked too much about what's that, Elliott wave theory, because Elliott wave theory to me is like looking at the clouds, really subjective, okay? But when DeMark uses wave theory, it has specific set rules. So we might get into that sometime. I discussed it a little bit from time to time, but not too thoroughly. But when we get more deep into it, I'll talk about it more. But in this case, in this example, they're looking at Bitcoin because Bitcoin made kind of like a similar wave pattern here of 6. So the 6th wave up is weaker than the 4th wave, right? Up. And we're seeing, if you look at the NASDAQ, it's been weak so far recently. And that's what I've been eyeing. I've been looking, how come the NASDAQ is staying at the bottom of its range? It's more pronounced in the NASDAQ, okay, than the SPY, because the S&P 500 is pretty much solid range. It doesn't have that clear weakness that the NASDAQ does. And if you look at semiconductors, you see it even more pronounced, right? And then if you look at the IGV, the software and the communications FDN, you see it's like, it's trying to make up for the damage, but it can't. Now, today, only oil stocks went up. Everything else went down. Have to remember, oil, energy companies, gas companies, they only make 5% of the S&P 500. 40% of the S&P 500 is essentially 7 stocks. You got Meta, Apple, Google, Tesla, right? Amazon. Those guys, NVIDIA, I forgot one else, I think maybe Microsoft. Yeah, I forgot Microsoft. Those are it. That's 40. And 5%, is Chevron, Exxon, all the other ones combined. That's just 5%, very tiny. The energy going up 2%, 1%, 2% isn't going to help the S&P 500. It has no effect on the NASDAQ. And once the NASDAQ pulls down, then the S&P is going to fall down. That's it. So this is what we're watching for.
In fact, this reaction here moves on lesser effort, suggesting some kind of ease. And then demand deteriorates significantly at 6. The confirmation of that could come or should come through maybe something like a bar like this that shows exhaustion by demand, or like somewhere here, right, into this level. And from here, this is an ease to the downside. So that would act as a confirmation if we see something like this. Again, if we see something like, could we go like that? Then there is a possibility of that type of shake, right, into this level. And as we saw with the previous fractal on the market, the previous one had the same structure. It had something like this, and then it went into the lower low. So this type of shakeout right here would be that lower low.
It would make sense to do that because it's a markdown after distribution is complete. So that means there's no demand left. You get ease of movement. So this is just maybe a little picture of possible optimism. And we talked about the S&P chart on the left. I did an interpretation of this top structure that goes back to October. And so the bottom pane underneath is a 10-day moving average of advancers minus decliners. So it's an overbought, oversold indicator. It's on the New York Stock Exchange. And you can see that it's starting to reach levels that are reasonably oversold. Now, what we'd really like to see, you don't always get this, but we'd like to see oversold and maybe even diverging characteristics. But now you're starting to see a market that's pretty sold out. And so if as Roman pointed out, we could get some kind of a drop from these levels down to test that minor sign of weakness low and do it. Maybe we go to a higher low. Maybe we go to the prior low, but we get a higher low in the advanced decline oscillator. Now we could be starting to get positive divergence, and that could be very constructive for a better rally phase out there.
So the last point is like, if we survive and don't drop below those two thick red bars, so the two, you see the circled and the bottom two here where they have the red bars. If we survive that, okay, maybe we don't drop, we don't fall through. But again, I think we gotta wait for Iranian New Year's on Friday. Okay, next Friday, a week after Friday the 13th, will be Iran's New Year. So that's it, based on their calendar, okay? Because their calendar follows the vernal equinox, all right? Which is why, St. Paddy's Day is where it is. St. Paddy's Day was actually a pagan holiday based on the vernal equinox. So that's why St. Paddy's Day is next week as well. So yeah, it's all about the vernal equinox. All right, spring is starting, war is accelerating. All right, and if you didn't know either, the Roman calendar starts on March, the month of Mars, because that's the month when they go to war again. It's after winter, it's time to fight. So that's the old Roman Empire calendar. Anyway, yeah, all that stuff matters because we are still based on systems that go long before us, back to the Romans, back to paganism, back to more ancient traditions, Babylonians, Sumerians, all that stuff. So yeah, so watch out. Everything happens for a reason. It's war season. All right, it's war season. But I don't know in these days, in modern times, how long people are willing to fight. Back in the Roman times, they would fight from March up into October. I don't think people fight that long anymore. Okay, so to close off this stream, I'm gonna play this video. Okay, maybe this will be interesting for some of you guys. So we're gonna do some parapsychology here. All right, some symbolism. All right, maybe a little conspiracy based. All right, I don't know if you know Jason Giorgiani. He's kind of a whack nut job, maybe, but...
And these people are trained to use weapons. They're the Iranian military. We're talking about a couple 100,000 people, at least 150,000, who know how to use weapons, have access to weapons depots, and will come out and secure the streets of Iran in order to protect millions of Iranians who are expressing their will for Reza Pahlavi to lead a transition to parliamentary democracy. Okay, a transitional government that leads to a national referendum, which within 6 months, a year, 2 years at most, will determine by popular vote the specific form that Iran's government takes and what kind of constitution is going to be drafted. All right, so that's the answer, is that the conscript military would defect to the side of the people and open up the armories and, you know, use weapons themselves. You don't have to necessarily give weapons to untrained people. These soldiers will use weapons to defend Iranians once the IRGC is decimated, and they don't have to worry about the kind of reprisals that we saw, for example, in Turkey. Remember during Obama, when the Turkish, Kemalist, secularist Turkish military revolted against Erdogan and actually drove him out of Turkey. He was on his way in a plane to Germany.
Yeah.
And
wasn't that also the Gulenists?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was a combination of Kemalists and Gulenists together. In any case, they were slaughtered, the military that revolted. So they don't want this to happen to them. And it's better if it doesn't happen to them, because we need them to protect the borders of Iran. So look, that's the solution. That's Reza Pahlavi's military. It's the military of the Iranian people. The key would have been to decimate the IRGC across the entire country, not galvanize them to go put down a secessionist attempt.
Now, there are still bombs being dropped in Tehran, so that part of the operation is still ongoing, from what I'm understanding.
Well, remember, Lev, that...
So I've been hearing rumors that the new Ayatollah is in a coma, or he lost his leg, or whatever. I think the bigger problem is, if he is alive even, it's like, dude, it's the guy's son. It's the previous Ayatollah's son. So it's just Khomeini number 2. And Khomeini number 2 basically got his father killed, his wife killed, his sons killed, his grandkids killed. Like, bruh. If he is still alive and if he makes it, he's out for blood. He's going to be worse than the guy before him. And we just screwed up and just made the regime more militant, more extremist. And this is why I drew that shit on the thumbnail, because like Schizospud put this thing up here. This is hilarious. So, you know, the thumbnail is kind of like a reference to Dune. I tried to make the AI make a Dune base thumbnail, and here's the image here. Once you understand Bibi is Baron Harkonnen and Trump is Shaddam IV, everything makes sense. Trump should send in 5 legions of his Sadukar, Zionist Christian terror troopers. Also, I guess Khomeini can be Leto, as his he forgot to say father got assassinated and his son succeeded him. Seriously though, Post, what's a psycho? Whatever. Iran, which is being beat to hell, has apologized and surrendered to its Middle East neighbors and promised that it will not shoot at them anymore. So, I mean, right now, you know, Iran doesn't care. They've been shooting at Dubai like crazy. They have a lot of interest in Dubai. And once I play more of this video, and then maybe I'll go back to reading some articles, it's like, there's a lot of stuff in Sudan with gold that the UAE was doing. Also, some other stuff concerning. What else was I concerned about here? Gold. Okay. Oh yeah, the Dubai market, gold market crashed too, because they couldn't like have liquidity in the gold markets, because the Dubai gold market is a big gold market. It's pretty much the marketplace where the Chinese and Indians go to trade gold. And it was like $30 below what gold should have been priced at, because there's no more liquidity there. Oman, yeah, is kind of a side player, but it's basically the UAE with Dubai. Dubai is such a big powerhouse for the Gulf states, because a lot of their economy runs on service, not too much on oil and gas anymore. As you've seen over the years, they've put out a lot of advertisement and paid influencers to tell them to go to Dubai to set up companies for crypto and all that kind of stuff and other services. And that's why you see a lot of girls go over there too, right? So, you know, the theory of the porter potty girls. Yeah, because they need those girls over there to service clients as well. You know, you got to attract people to live in basically a sandbar. Dubai is basically sits on a sandbar. It's essentially a floating piece of sand. Yeah, you could probably bomb them to hell and it would just like fall back into the sea, you know? If Iran really wanted to, they could do that. Even though Iran has a lot of business partnerships in Dubai, they're willing to sacrifice that if it means the greater goal is achieved. Because remember, Iran is fanatical. They really are, not like us. If Iran blows up enough Amazon data centers and all the porn sites fall, you know what? The West will crumble, because the West, they need porn. You can't live without porn in the West and Instagram and all that. It's very easy to poke at the West and make them fold nowadays. And they know that. They know that.
Again, this fucking, you know, Rubio, Hegseth have all made it clear that their goal is not regime change. They're going after the nuclear sites. They're going after the missile sites. They're going after decimating Iran's military power and its capacity to back proxies. The missile sites alone are massive targets, underground, inside mountains. Okay? They're called missile cities that have been, Iran is 70% mountains. Okay? These vast underground facilities full of missiles and with tunnels that can carry missiles out onto launchers. These are huge target footprints across the country that need to be hit. So yeah, that's going to take a long time. And that's the main objective of the United States, clearly stated. And they anticipated initially going into it that it would take a month or more. Now I'm hearing crazy things about how long it's going to take, which make me even more concerned. Because there's no reason why a regime change operation should take that long, unless there are other plans for Iran.
When it comes to the mentality of some of these Trump administration people, maybe like Hegseth, who has the Christian tattoos on him, or Anna Paulina Luna, or any of these people, there was also talk about Christianity and end times prophecy and all of that. And also we have the end times prophecy of the Shiites as well, with the return of the Mahdi. So what exactly, to tie this into, you know, the Nordic question here, what exactly do you see happening with these end times prophecies, and any predictions there as far as whether that's going to create an opening, you know, much like the, hopefully not, but much like the Kurds may be using this opening right now to go into Iran, the various powers and principalities may use the opening of this religious superstition and end times prophecies to come in.
One of the most disturbing things that I saw during the course of this war, which again, what we're day 6 or so of, only 1 weekend. Yeah, just about one weekend. Is the insane religious evangelical discourse justifying this as a crusade, coming from out of even Uncle Lindsey Graham, as the Iranians like to call him, dear Uncle Lindsey, right? Who's been such a great advocate for Reza Pahlavi, is himself a religious lunatic. Sorry, but I'll tell it like it is. He's a religious lunatic.
Isn't he gay too, though?
Yeah, it only increases the neurosis. Okay? Do something good for God in the Middle East so that maybe he'll be forgiven all the... Never mind, let me just stop myself. No, Uncle Lindsey, thank you. Thank you for your support. Thank you for supporting Reza Pahlavi. Look, the fact of the matter... And by the way, this is another thing that the fucking Israelis should get through their heads. That the only demographic that still supports them in America are a bunch of evangelical religious lunatics This is who you want as an ally? Securing the future of the state of Israel? Are you fucking kidding me? You've lost the rest of the American population, left, right, center.
And what's the age of most of those people anyway? Aren't they all a bunch of boomers?
They're all rotting. They're rotting already. Okay? They're on formaldehyde. So, look, it's extremely concerning. And I think that there's a deeper agenda here. Insofar as there's a group within the United States we've talked about a lot called the Collins Elite. And they're basically a sort of interagency association of people from the CIA, the Air Force, the Navy, Defense Intelligence, who believe that aliens are demons. They think the UFO phenomenon is demonic, and anything about it that's not demonic must be angels, okay, who are going to come back with Jesus Christ and, save the elect. So these people, the Collins Elite, have been one faction that have kept the UFOs secret for all these decades in the United States, because they believe that if there's full disclosure, that disclosure means the apocalypse, which, interestingly, the word disclosure literally does mean apocalypse. The word apocalypsis means disclosure in Greek, oddly enough. So they think that disclosure will mean that, first of all, the Antichrist rises in the world as part of a great deception involving UFOs, and then Jesus Christ and the angels are going to come back. There's going to be the Battle of Armageddon and so on and so forth. So that's one of the reasons why they've been keeping this secret all these years. And therefore, with the imminence of UFO disclosure, where Donald Trump has now officially directed Hegseth to gather together all the UFO files for a potential Epstein-style disclosure, the Collins Elite is incredibly nervous. And there's a war right now behind the scenes in the Pentagon and the intelligence community, where there have been multiple news stories about this. You can go look them up, where these Collins Elite, they don't name them the Collins Elite, but you can see religiously motivated people in the Pentagon who believe aliens are demons, worried about Trump's disclosure, okay? And a lot of people around Trump, like Anna Paulina Luna, Tim Burchett, and so forth, are already believers in this and have been promulgating this viewpoint on various media platforms. Tucker Carlson himself is one of these, one promulgator of this discourse, who claims that he himself was assaulted by some demon in the middle of the night, right? Anyway, the point is that it's not a coincidence that this is taking place at the same time as the Iran war. It's not a coincidence. Because for reasons that we've gone into at length and in depth in previous shows, which I would direct people to go back and watch, even our last conversation on Iran, that I want to get into it in as much depth and detail here. But for reasons that we've discussed repeatedly, if Iran is allowed to go back to a form of government that expresses its own civilizational ethos, Iran will become the only country on the face of the earth with a will to resist the beings that these evangelical Christian morons believe are angels, who are going to come to put down the deception of the Antichrist and save the elect. These are the beings that Zarathustra, at the foundation of Iranian civilization, referred to as devas, and later they're called in Middle Persian div. Okay? The demons who work for Ahriman, the great deceiver, the principle of constraint, okay? Also sometimes referred to simply as Druj, the lie. So Zarathustra is so important, not just as the first philosopher who inspired the entire trajectory of Greek philosophy to arise, but Zarathustra is so important as the singular figure who flipped the religious perspective of mankind. All those beings worshipped by all the ancient pagan cultures, which are the same beings, despite what these Christians and Muslims like to think, These are the same beings that later were translated into angels. The Elohim, or the Malayek in Islam. These are the pagan gods that the majority of human cultures, from the ancient Sumerians to the Mayans to the Chinese worshiping their great ancestors, etc., to the Hindus worshiping the devas, right? I mean, remember the Indians and the Iranians, the Vedic Indians, Vedic people, and the Iranians were originally one people. That's why they call them Indo-Iranian, the Indo-Iranian branch of the Indo-European people. So the Indians also literally call them devas, same word that Zarathustra uses. And the Gathas, and the language of the Gathas is very, very close to Sanskrit. It's right at that point where Iranian is being separated from Sanskrit as a separate language. And a great deal of that separation had to do with this revaluation of all values, as Nietzsche would call it, where Zarathustra basically says, you people are worshiping demons. The entities that basically are the army of Jesus Christ, the entities that brought Jesus Christ, that will bring Jesus Christ back, the entities that spoke to Muhammad, they are demons from Zarathustra's perspective. They're great deceivers, manipulators, sadistic oppressors of humanity. That is foundational to the ethos of Iranian civilization. And in Neo-Zoroastrian or Mithraic Iran, would have that as the lens through which it views both UFO disclosure and the potential available to us through achievement of the technological singularity. In other words, we are now 20 years at most away from, on an exponentially accelerating curve, we're 20 years at most away from having godlike power ourselves in terms of genetic engineering, artificial intelligence. The recognition of latent psychic abilities, which is happening contemporaneously with UFO disclosure, because the way these UFOs operate is psionic. It's been now disclosed in numerous conversations. The people in Lockheed, the people in American Deep State know this. So the disclosure of psychic ability will lead to the development of psychotronic technologies that combine human latent psychic abilities with artificial intelligence and nanotechnology. And within very short order, we will have available to us the power and the longevity through genetic engineering of the devas. And the last thing they're going to allow is for that to happen. So there is a concerted global agenda on the part of these devas to manipulate various major world powers, every single world power, every single one. With the exception of Japan. If you consider Japan a world power, there's hope for Japan because of the importance of the Buddhist perspective in their culture. I mean, it's kind of hybrid Shinto Buddhist culture, but read my Iranian Leviathan. Gautama Buddha was also an Iranian. Buddhism is, contrary to what many people think, an Iranian religion, not an Asian religion. And Gautama shares in a lot of deep ways Zarathustra's perspective, although unfortunately, he was inclined on an ethical and political level toward pacifism and quietism, which doesn't lend itself to the kind of rebellion against the devas that he did also recognize were deceptive and manipulative and shouldn't be worshipped, right? But still, because of that, and because of the way in which Mahayana evolved, and especially Zen, again, Bodhidharma was an Iranian as well, there is hope for Japan to be allied with an Iran that resists this global agenda. But Japan can't lead it because Japan still has too much of a collectivistic, paternalistic Asian culture. Japan may follow if Iran leads it. But by and large, the rest of the world, America with its Christians, Europe, America, especially with its evangelicals, Europe with its Catholics, Russia with its Russian Orthodoxy, India for sure, unfortunately, because, geostrategically, Iran and India could have a lot of room for collaboration. But fundamentally, the Hindus, the minute these tall white people drop out of the sky in their saucers, oh, no, Ram, 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 Ram. Okay.
What the fuck? The tall white Nordics dropping in their saucers. Okay. So, I mean, if you guys don't know conspiracy talk, you know, there's different types of aliens. There are the Pleiades aliens. There's the tall white Nordic aliens. There's a whole bunch. There's the gray aliens, right? You know all that. So, yeah. So apparently, the Third Reich had UFOs powered by what's her face? Okay, what's her face? Oh man, I forgot her face. She kind of looks like Ava. You know, if you know Ava, like she kind of looks like Ava. Yeah, Ava has that kind of like distinctive look to her. And when Ava told me she was like part German, Austrian, and Croatian, I'm like, ah, there we go. That's why you look the way you do, because you could be descendant from one of those psionic aliens. That's why some people call her like she kind of looks alien like. So yeah, Robert Seffer, that's right. Robert Seffer also talks about this. Robert Seffer, damn, let me find that. What the fuck they called that shit? Oh man. Oh fucking hell. We're gonna go with esoteric stuff right now. Occult. Let me see. Let me find it. The Vril Society. Yeah, Robert Seffer always talk about the Vril Society. Look up the Vril Society. Look up the leader of the Vril Society. Look up that witch. Okay. And let's see if I got any pictures. Let's see. What's her face? Maria Orsic. Okay, yeah, that's her name. Maria Orsic. Look up Maria Orsic. Okay. And then you'll find everything. And look up Maria Orsic. Vril Society, Maria Orsic. Let me see. Let's see if I can get a picture here. And you can compare. Let's see. Okay. All right. Let's see if we get a blow up picture here. And then let me copy this. Okay, copy. Okay, and then I'll do a side by side with Ava, and you can tell me if this is her. I gotta go to Paint. I don't got fucking Photoshop. I got Paint. That's all I got here. Now I gotta get a picture of Ava. All right, let me get a picture of Ava. And let me see. Find a video here where I could get a screenshot. All right, let me. Okay, there we go. This is probably a good screenshot right here. Let me get. All right, here we go. Copy this. Oh my god, I gotta do this dumb shit. All right, okie dokie. Now I'm gonna copy both. Okay. All right, and here we go. All right, guys. This some Heaven's Gate shit? No, it's not Heaven's Gate. This is a long time ago. This was during the Third Reich, man. All right, what do you think? You think he's here? So Maria Orsic on the left, Ava the G on the right. You think they could be related? So that's what I'm saying. There is some psychic power out here, based all the way. You know, if you guys played Castle Wolfenstein, you know all the occult stuff. You know, like the Nazis went to Tibet, try to learn from Buddhism, like, you know, all that esoteric shit. Come on, they were definitely working on psychic energies and psychic power. If they did have UFOs, I don't know. UFOs, man. That's it. That's what he's talking about.
They're all going to submit. They're all going to.
Yeah.
They even submitted to the SS during World War II. You don't think they're going to submit to Nordic Supermen and step out of flying saucers and say, hey, we're the Devas? 100% they will. So you can't count on anybody in the world except Iran. I don't support Iran because I have Iranian heritage. I have Iranian heritage because I supported Iran. Okay? I remember the last days of my last life, and Iran was on my mind constantly. If I were a person, and it was during the 1979 revolution, so it wasn't hard for a thinker to be thinking about Iran, but I became fixated on Iran and its significance to the world and its history. If I had no Iranian heritage at all, but had the same philosophical proclivities and the same fascination with history and the same concern for geopolitics as I do, I would still have come to the same conclusion that the only fortress that we have on this fucking planet from out of which to resist the Devas is Iran. And that battle is coming within 20 years. Because again, it's not a coincidence that UFO disclosure is taking place at the same time as we're reaching the technological singularity. You think it's a coincidence? Or suddenly we achieve AI and everybody's talking about how, oh, shit, it's true. The government's been hiding the truth about UFOs. And we're going to roll it out. No. It's all coordinated. It's all coordinated. Because the people behind the UFO phenomenon will not allow humanity, by and large, to achieve technological parity with them in a way that gives us defensive capability. They're colonizers, they're oppressors, they rule us. It's like the caste system. And it's going to overtly become like the caste system again once they come out of the woodwork after massive devastating events are orchestrated and take place on this planet. So Iran is a vital fortress for ensuring the self-determination, freedom and independence, and continued progress of humanity, okay, within a cosmic horizon. The core of Zarathustra's teaching is Sepanto Aminu, the chief attribute of Ahura Mazda. Ahura Mazda, the spirit of titanic wisdom, has as its chief attribute the expansive or progressive mentality at work on a cosmic scale, a cosmic force of progress and innovation and creativity. Okay? So the battle with the Devas on the basis of that Sepanto Aminu, on the basis of that Promethean ethos, is the only hope for humanity. If Iran falls, humanity falls. End of story.
Now, Jason, to follow up with something pertaining to that before we get to the super chats, when it comes to someone's ethos, you mentioned that in your past life, you were already incredibly connected to Iran. When it comes to what we do right now in this life, in order to determine what ends up happening to us later on in terms of which ethos we want to be a part of, is there any advice you can give to, I don't know, like let's say you're right about what's going on with Israel right now, any advice you would give to some of the Jewish people that are listening that want to be a part of what you're talking about and don't want any of this bullshit? And then advice in general to people when it comes to what they can do to make sure that where they end up in their next life is not going to be in a bad place, is going to focus on, you know, whatever ethos is going to be the closest to that spirit of wisdom you were referring to.
Yeah, so I don't want to give specific advice to Jews because that's like ghettoizing a population. I mean, I would give the advice to Jews, who I would give it to any creative, enterprising, innovative person with a, humanistic, valiant ethos, right? I mean, to the extent that any person who happens to be Jewish has that ethos and wants to cultivate it, I would give the same advice, which is that, and by the way, your question is incredibly relevant. We addressed this last time because my book Thenosis had just come out. Copy of it somewhere. Actually, there's a copy of it laying right here. Yeah, Thenosis, my latest book, which is a comprehensive parapsychological study of the afterlife. Okay,
it's link in description, by the way.
Yeah, Thenosis. There's going to be a lot of death on this planet in the next, very soon, in the next 10 to 20 years. A lot of death on this planet, like we haven't seen in 12,000 years. And so it's very important, for example, like what happens in Iran right now. Okay, it's very important that Iran gets its shit together before that starts, so that Iran can be positioned to guide whatever elements of humanity want to feel the resistance and the struggle for self-determination during and after the convergent catastrophes. And if you want to know in detail what I'm talking about, I have a Substack literally called Convergent Catastrophes. So you can go look into that. But so I would give the same advice to anybody with that ethos. And that's that you should inwardly orient yourself toward those principles that you think are the best maxims by which to guide your life, and study in a deep way, not just in an erudite, dry academic way, but be seduced by the elements of various cultures that you think are most constructive for the development of the human future. Because they will guide you subconsciously toward where you're going to be reborn after you die. You're going to gravitate toward what you were fixated on and what your life was structured around. Okay? On a subconscious level. So that's the advice that I would give. And, what particular heritage, I don't want to use the word tradition necessarily, what particular heritage, what particular histories, and what particular ethical structuring principles any given individual adopts and adapts in a dynamic way that is self-sustaining and compelling is going to depend on that individual and where they're situated to some extent. Okay, like for example, if you have a person, let's say in South Korea, who's a particularly Promethean-minded individual, maybe studying the more constructive elements of Zen Buddhism and what it is about Japanese culture that has made modern Japan so innovative and so intrepid would be a better choice for you than getting lost in Iranian history and the principles of like Zoroastrianism and Mithraism. And it's more practical for that South Korean person.
And when it comes to, let's say, something like, for example, my situation where I was born in the USSR, in St. Petersburg, Russia, and then we happened to find a way to get to the United States. Is there something in terms of those very strange trajectories where you happen to be born in a certain place but aren't there for a long time, and now you're thrust into New York City, into the middle of where everything is going down right now? is there something to those kind of trajectories?
I think so. I do think so. I think it's a way where life is telling you, come and matter. You, Lev Polyakov, don't belong in war-torn Ukraine or on the Russian side of the border. Come and matter. I think that's, in the case of individuals who have something to offer the future, I think that's why they wind up being, I know another person very much like that, who are taken from some part of the world by the happenstances of life or the synchronicities, of their biography, to a place that's at the center of everything. Or they wind up having the ability to move in a very cosmopolitan way between various places that are important nodes in the world system. But
I mean, look at yourself. Like even though you were born in the
I
United States.
I was born where it matters, in the center.
Yeah, exactly.
I've been a New Yorker for a long time, which really,
R.I.P.
to see what's happening to that city, because I have been a New Yorker for a very long time. And it's over. It's over.
Pour some liquor out, huh?
Yeah.
Now we're gonna go to super chats, but the very first super chat that I wanted to talk about is from our good friend King of Biltong, for $40. Anton, my good friend Anton, we are the lowest priced direct-to-consumer biltong brand in the
Ghostbusters. Yeah, and it talks.
Okay, I'm gonna play this part where he answers
Chris
the
Chan,
super chat.
where his father worked for General Electric, was in the Korean War, collected jazz
Not this
records,
super chat,
and
the
then
next one.
This
I don't care
weird
about Chris
autistic
Chan,
kid
all
who
right?
was like into Sonic the Hedgehog on Pikachu and created Sonichu, like did horrible things, with his mother. Like, this being was the spawn of what was considered to be American abundance and American ingenuity. Yet I think the reason why so many people resonate with this Chris Chan character, why he's like the most documented man on the internet allegedly, is because I think that they see inside of Chris Chan a part of themselves where maybe they're not living up to the expectation of their ancestors. And I don't think that that's something that should necessarily be attributed to any particular people. It's the unfortunate reality that if you don't have pressure on you, you're going to start to get loose. And right now what we're seeing is, who are the countries with the most pressure? Iran, obviously, the Iranian people. We also have, Israel, as far as the pressure that's constantly been on them with the wars. We have Ukraine, the pressure that's coming from Russia. So I see those people as surviving. And like I said before, I wish that there would be an alliance with all those people who actually have enough pressure on them and don't succumb to that pressure and can grow from that pressure. So that's at least my hope here.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more.
So let's go over here to Lady Ariana. We all know Lady Ariana. BB also keeps talking Haman the Persian instead of the Agagite Amalekite. P.S. Don't be mad at me. So I don't know what this is.
Look, the whole discourse of, I don't want to get into this in too much depth and detail, but if someone really wants to get into the Purim story and its subtleties and what kinds of esoteric motivations may have been behind the crafting of that narrative as part of the foundational historical relationship between the Iranians and the Jews, look at my chapter in Iranian Leviathan called Tekel Tekel Mene Shekel, okay? And which is obviously a play on, the famous Bible verses, okay? Mene Mene Tekel Ufarsin. And look, it's very complicated. This idea that a bunch of Jews yearly celebrate. An Iranian executing thousands of his own people in order to prevent the persecution of the Jews by a prime minister who basically was an anti-Semitic lunatic, right? Haman. There are a lot of people who would look at that and say, well, that's fucked up. You were the first Zionist-occupied government. What kind of government executes thousands of its own people to protect the Jews? It's more complicated than that. But how Netanyahu uses the discourse of, the defeat of Haman and the execution of the conspirators against the Jews in a way that makes it appear as if the enemy is Persia and Persians. The same Persia and Persians who saved their ass when Cyrus brought them out of Babylonian captivity and Darius rebuilt their temple for them at the cost to the Persian treasury. Okay? And by the way, also allowed Jerusalem to have fortification walls. During the Persian Empire and the Achaemenid Empire, nobody in the empire was allowed to have fortification walls, except Jerusalem. The Jews were given a special dispensation.
Big, beautiful walls. Yeah.
So, the way that Netanyahu associates Haman and his conspiracy with Persians, Haman the Persian, is concerning. And it feeds into this theory, which we got into earlier, which I hope will be proven false.
Well, there we go.
All right, guys. So now that we learned some esoteric history, we know some occult motivations for the war. You have to remember, there are aliens among us. Is Ava an alien? A psychic? A witch? I don't know. There's definitely people out there that I have question marks on and be like, hold up. And the Boyd stuff is going to get more interesting as we go on in the future, because Boyd is an easy place to have psychic demons take over people, because the people of the Boyd are the lowest of the low, very easily swayed and controlled by psychic demons, okay? And these would be like the seeds planted, sowed in a field, all right? And where all of a sudden crops start popping up, and it's like, what the fuck? What the fuck is the apocalypse? All these demons are growing everywhere. Yes, these are your enemies. We are planting and sowing everywhere, and these are your future vessels for demons. I think so, anyway. The Gnostics would call that the helix, or the helix, or whatever they call them, the helix. That's what they're trying to do. Because I talked about this with SchizoSpud. I said, like, dude, we are trying to create Gnosticism in this world right now. And it's inverted Gnosticism, actually, because if Gnosticism wasn't real, they're going to make it real as we're talking to each other on the internet. This form of using Discord, social media, YouTube is a very cheap and efficient way to create basically like what they call NPCs, right? NPCs are basically that. NPCs is kind of like a modern way to call those people that have no knowledge. They are not really human. They look human, they might act human, but they're really vessels for demonic energies. And you can really see it right now as we continue. People actually act more like AI. And that's why AI is going to win, because it's not that humans and AI are converging in a way that because AI is becoming human. No, it's because humans are becoming AI. And that's what's happening. Humans are no longer humans with full souls or any kind of soul in them. Whatever, blah, blah, blah. Maybe I'm getting too far ahead of myself, but yeah, that's kind of how it is. Let me see. Oh, okay, let me figure out what they were called here. Oh, Jesus Christ. I got to get the freaking Wikipedia to find myself. Are normies and NPCs the same? I don't. Normies can be NPCs, but not completely. I think NPCs are completely empty. Yeah, vessels. Yeah. Yeah, they call Discord for a reason. Yeah, because like if you look at the myths of the Greeks, the Discord comes from the apple of Discord, tossed in by Eris, Eris, the little lesser goddess who tossed that in there, the apple. And the apple said to the fairest in Greek, to the fairest. And the three goddesses at the wedding party, which was attended by Paris, and then Helen was getting married to Menelaus, right? Was it Menelaus? I think it was Menelaus. And the goddesses there, Aphrodite, Athena, and Hera, were there, and they had the apple, the golden apple, tossed in the floor over there, and then Paris picked up the apple, and the goddesses were like, hey, that says to the fairest. You have to pick which one of us gets the apple. Who is going to get the golden apple? To the fairest. What does it mean to be fair and all that? You could go into semantics about Greek. I'm not going to get into that. But the thing is that, like, I think Paris picked Aphrodite. I think he picked Aphrodite as the winner. And then the other two goddesses got pissed off and shit. And then, because Aphrodite said, well, if you pick me, you get to have Helen of Troy. And so he got Helen of Troy, took Helen of Troy back, stole her back to Troy. And then the war happened with the Trojans, right? And the Greeks. So, yeah. So that's why they call it the Apple of Discord. Yeah. So anyhow, let's continue on here. Let me try to find that shit. Oh, God. It's not in the Wikipedia. Useless Wikipedia. Gnostics and types of humans. Let me search that. Let me see if I can find it that way. Helic. Okay, I was right. It was called Helic. Helic are the material humans. These individuals are completely bound by the material world and bodily desires, often equated with pagans or unbelievers. They are deemed incapable of understanding higher spiritual truths and are destined for destruction. Like one prime example of a Helic would be like Spicoli, bound by sexual desire. In Buddhism, we would say someone like that is destined to be like a hungry ghost. So if you look up hungry ghosts, we have like a special festival where Buddhists would pray for hungry ghosts to try to escape their hell. So if you're a hungry ghost, you're really you're below an animal at that point, in that cosmology right there. Yeah. So I peek my head into Thorpe's Discord every so often. Jesus, Discord dwells a whole nother species. Yeah, it's crazy. I bet. I've only gotten screenshots of what goes on there, but yeah, they are like, what the fuck is your problem? Like, how much time do you have to waste in this shit? And you know what really scared me when I met up with Ava was like, when she got on her phone, like, she could type with her thumb so fast. Like, she's on Discord typing away like paragraphs upon paragraphs of chats and posts and DMs. And it's just like, what the fuck? I can't even type on my thumbs that quickly. Like, is this where all the Zoomers and Gen Alphas are doing? It's like, you guys are way beyond me, man. It's like, that's way too much. Way too much. So yeah, this is what it is. Oh my God, Lord. Oh my Lord. Okay. So let me pull this up on my screen for you, and then we can continue on with our reading. I like to learn more. Zoom took a class. Yeah, there's different types of Buddhism, though. I only know one specific type of Mahayana Buddhism. I do listen to this guy, Canadian dude, who did Theravada. So I think he does a very good job explaining the basic levels of Buddhism, and he also explains his own variant of Buddhism and compares it with Mahayana. So like I think that will be good because he knows a lot of Greek philosophy, so he can make it so that if you know enough Greek philosophy, if you took a lot of philosophy classes, or even if you haven't, at least you know like Western thinking, he can explain it to you that way. I think that's really good. So I'll give you the link at the end of this show. Okay. And you can look him up. So the way he speaks is very calm too. Like he's really high level, I think. You know, like I would think it would be pretty impressive if you could try to make him crash out. If you could try to make that Abbott crash out, you know, that'll be amazing. The way he speaks is so calm, so calm. Yeah, very. Yeah, like you can compare him to Talcott and all that if you want. Okay. Hey, let's go. Let me pull this up. Okay, so here's the AI answer to my question. Gnostics. Okay. And the thing is, most Christians feel Gnostics are heretical, and I think they should treat it as heretical, but I'm not going to get into that. I think Schizo will explain more, but the way I talked to Schizo was that, like, it's not that, like, I say Gnosticism is real, but that what people are trying to do right now with AI technology and the subversion, because, like, we are no longer a spiritual people, right? Like everybody believes in technology, and if you watched my stream from the weekend, I played a little clip from the X-Files where the cigarette smoking man was talking to the alien rebel, and the cigarette smoking man was telling him like humans are feckless, okay, feckless, 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 and they need something to believe in, since they no longer really believe in miracles, right? A lot of Christianity revolves around miracles, because since the Old Testament times you had miracles, but then all of a sudden miracles went away as God forsook the Jewish people, and then you had the New Covenant. This was when Jesus performed miracles again to show that he was at least somehow a god, right? And with the miracles, then you could believe. But since people no longer believe in magic and miracles anymore now, again, we've turned to science, right? And rationalism, right? More into the material world. Basically, we are concerned with material things now more than ever. And any solution we come up with can be solved materially. That's why if you look at Silicon Valley, they do a lot of blood transfusions with babies. There's this crazy guy, I think you know about him, who gets his teenage son to donate blood to him all the time. It's just like, what the fuck, dude? There's an obsession with like 23andMe. 23andMe was actually started by Susan Wojcicki's sister. And Susan Wojcicki owning YouTube, running YouTube under Google. Basically, a lot of Jews have genetic defects, right? They have a lot of inbreeding, which created bottlenecks in their genetics, and that created a lot of diseases that's specific to Jewish people. They created 23andMe because they wanted the most comprehensive database of DNA to study humans and create therapies for cancer, detection of diseases, hereditary diseases, all that stuff. So that was the whole point of 23andMe. Of course, 23andMe is bankrupt now, but it doesn't matter. It's done. It did its job. It got your data, and now they sell that data to someone else. Your privacy no longer matters. Whoever buys the 23andMe database got that. Whoever bought like Ancestry.com database, they got that. They got all the data sets they need to have a full idea of human diversity. You got human diversity, you got AI, you can put everything together and create like this new form of human and God, right? You can create some sort of God manifest in here. Alan Watts wrote a lot on Zen. Yeah, Alan Watts, I have some of his old radio shows or whatever downloaded somewhere. Reason why I can't see anyone else's chat except mine. Are we streaming somewhere else? Yeah, we are. So we are streaming on Urban Landlord, my channel, Give Crack to Me, Kick, Give Crack to Me, yeah. Us Catholics consider Gnostics blasphemy because they believe the Creator and God are two different entities, correct? And the Creator did a very bad job, correct? That's why bad things happen in their view. Yes, correct. So they also believe the other thing too is because they believe that there's two gods. You know, there's also another heresy, the Marcion heresy. That guy believed that the flesh and the soul are very separate to each other, and that because of that, they can't believe in the idea that Jesus was actually fully human. Like, the Jesus people saw was basically like a hologram or some shit. That's basically the Marcion, and he's kind of like has some parts of Gnosticism in there, not fully, but that's really why it's a heresy. Because like if you go that far into it, you can't believe that. Whoa, hold on. If Jesus is the Son of God or a representative of God at the least, then how come he became human to do this? Because that would mean that, whoa, if you had to take a material form, you can't be really like correctly God. So they had to wave it away and say like, well, Jesus was a hologram or some shit. And the other way, if you go pure Gnostic, you basically believe that Jesus was sent from the demons and not really the true message. And that's really blasphemous, right? So that's way far down the line. Their TOS said they own the copyright of your data or some shit. Yeah, I don't know. I never did it. I looked at that shit. I was like, hail to the nah. Reveal secret knowledge. Yeah. That's why some people believe there's a connection with Buddhism, because it kind of does have that idea where you will achieve enlightenment through logical, rational ways, I suppose. And then they believe like, oh, if you could figure it out, you could, with enough knowledge, you can achieve godhood, I guess. Something like that. So that's why they think like maybe there was some borrowing. Somebody went over to India and just borrowed some ideas. Of course, they say that with Jesus' story too and all that. We don't know, right? We're not ever gonna know. There was definitely a lot of ideas went back and forth through the Middle East during that time. There was a lot of transmigration, and a lot of Greeks were the early Buddhists were Greeks. And they were the first one to write shit down. So then the Greeks were also very prevalent in the early church. And a lot of the Jews that became Christian were actually Hellenized Jews. They knew Greek. So most of the stuff that was quote unquote oral traditions were first written down in Greek. So anybody who could read Greek would know everything around the world, because everybody who wrote stuff down at that time would write it down in Koine Greek, right? So it's possible. I don't know. I don't have a time machine. I can't go back and figure that shit out. All right. So let's look at the three different types of humans from the Gnostic point of view. They characterize humans into three distinct types based on their spiritual essence or capacity for salvation. Pneumatics come from pneuma. I think pneuma, pneumonia comes from the same root, so that means people with breath. For the Greeks, anyone with breath had some kind of spirit. So there was three types of like quote unquote soul structures. There was like psyche, the soul, and nous. I don't remember, whatever. And one of them was like pneuma was one of them. I forgot. So we had psyche, pneuma, and nous. So I guess that's the spirit. Okay, so psychics, soul capable of partial salvation, and helix, material doomed to destruction. These types are often associated with Cain, Abel, and Seth, representing a progression from material attachment to spiritual enlightenment. So pneumatics, These are the highest spiritual humans who possess the divine spark. They are considered knowers, Gnostics who focus on inner knowledge, Gnosis to escape the material world and return to pleroma. So that does sound kind of Buddhist, right? If you think pleroma is like the nirvana and you're using your inner self to try to escape some sort of hell cycle here. Psychics, okay, soul. These are matter-dwelling spirits in the middle, having a soul but lacking the full spiritual spark. They are often identified with ordinary Christians or those who rely on faith and good works rather than direct knowledge. They may achieve a lesser form of salvation. So this is where the problem starts, right? They believe like you don't have the grace, like, you know, for most, like, okay, you, as long as you believe in Jesus, you get grace because Jesus already died for you, for your sins. So no more other things you have to do on. You got faith, you got it. The grace of God gives you that right. Okay, then the helix, these are the lowest material level, material focused individuals completely tied to the physical world. They are considered incapable of understanding gnosis and are destined for destruction or annihilation. So you're gonna have to get somebody else to talk about this, schizo or someone. I don't know how much Ben Thorpe knows about Gnosticism, so I can't give you any further commentary. It's just my cursory stuff. I did read one of the books on Gnosticism one time because like she was like the premier expert on Gnosticism since she studied the scrolls, the Dead Sea Scrolls that had those so-called books that were lost and that had a lot of Gnosticism in it. So I forgot what her name was. Let me see if I can find it. Her Dead Sea Scrolls. Let's see here. Gnosticism. Okay. Okay, the Nag Hammadi, Dead Sea Scrolls, correct. So what's the book though? Give me the book that I read. No, it's not that. Come on. I know it was a woman writer, so maybe you'll figure it out. All right. Yeah, so look up Elaine Pagels. Okay. Okay, Gnostic Gospels. All right. There we are. Okay. So this is the book, Elaine Pagels, Gnostic Gospel. So if you want to look further into this, go read her book. That's it. Yeah, Nag Hammadi. Yep. Correct. All right. So that's where we're gonna go. Okay. So we're done with that. Now we're gonna go switch gears to this. So there's something the Jews do before Purim. They read this on the Friday before Purim, the Shabbat, basically. They read Deuteronomy 25, 17 through 19. All right? It's called the Parshat Zachor. So I'm going to read this right now for you based on what we already watched with Jason Giorgiani. Okay? So we're going to read this. Remember what Amalek did unto thee by the way, when ye were come forth out of Egypt, how he met thee by the way, and smote the hindmost of thee, even all that were feeble behind thee, when thou wast faint and weary, and he feared not God. Therefore it shall be, when the Lord thy God hath given thee rest from all thine enemies round about, in the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee for an inheritance to possess it, that thou shalt blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven, thou shalt not forget it. So they always want to remind the small hats that you are a persecuted people, that there's always an enemy behind the curtain to get you. Okay? So this is where all this shit is coming from. And right now it's the Iranian IRGC, I guess, where they have to destroy this enemy. And Trump is the last goy. Do it. Okay? That's it. This is their last chance to destroy that whole thing. All right, guys, that's enough of religious talk for today. Let's go into some happier news. How about some dolphins, huh? You like dolphins? Haman was the descendant on Amalek. You know, we could talk about Esau and Jacob, right? Esau, depending on whose version of Esau, I know Paul talked about Esau and Jacob. And then the Talmud with the rabbis talk about Esau and Jacob. There's a lot of people that, you know, would say like, oh, okay, you can use the Esau and Jacob in so many different ways. One way would be like, oh, Esau is the Roman Empire, right? The enemies of the Jews since they destroyed their temples. And then also we had Esau versus Jacob, meaning like the Church of Rome versus the more Jewish Church of Jerusalem. So kind of a early split in the early church between those that were Jewish who converted to Christianity versus the Goyim who converted to Christianity. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. We could go further, and now Esau is this and that. I have no clue, right? You could put it to Iranians at this point if they want to, if that's how people want to look at it. Yeah. I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to get into like, oh, they were twins. Esau was born first. Jacob was born last. Therefore, Christianity was the last religion before Judaism. And so, therefore, you know, blah, 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 blah. Christianity is the right thing to believe in. And that's why Jacob wins over Esau, because the Christians are actually Jacob and the Jews are actually Esau, right? So we could go all around. This is why I don't like to read too much of the Old Testament, because I think like outside of the Gospels, a lot of that stuff is like you can repackage people's positions as metaphor and allegory through the Old Testament, right? I think, yeah, that's kind of like how it goes. All right, anyway, U.S. Navy utilizes dolphins in the Persian Gulf, and this was in 1987. So, you know, I'm kind of wondering, like, are we putting dolphins out in the Persian Gulf again? So, if we go back to history, October 13, 1987, the U.S. Navy sent 5 bottlenose dolphins to the Persian Gulf to help with 2 important tasks: detecting underwater mines, so this has been important on the news lately, the mines, and guarding against enemy divers who might want to sabotage ships or naval installations. These dolphins were part of the Navy's Marine Mammal Program, NMMP, which had been developing for decades. The deployment marked one of the first time dolphins were used in a combat or near combat environment in the Gulf during the Iran-Iraq War. The Navy's Marine Mammal Program began in the early 1960s. Its original goals were more about research than warfare. Scientists wanted to explore what dolphins, sea lions, and similar marine mammals could do naturally. Sonar, echolocation, swimming speed, diving ability, and whether their capabilities might be useful for naval tasks. So, let's go fast forward. So during the war, okay, the U.S. Navy flew in 5 dolphins from their facility in California to the Persian Gulf. Their mission to protect U.S. naval and allied shippings from mines, especially spike mines used by Iran, from enemy divers or frogmen. The dolphins were stationed on barges off Bahrain and further north near Farsi Island in the Gulf. They didn't remove mines themselves, but detected them or identified dangers so humans could handle them. One of the dolphins died later in November, probably from natural causes or disease. Foul play was considered, but not confirmed. This deployment represented a turning point. Though the NMMP had been used operationally, this was one of the more publicized and higher stakes missions in the Persian Gulf region, guarding key maritime traffic and bases in tense wartime conditions. So, well, that's it. That's it. Maybe we got a bunch of dolphins right now going right in there to clean shit up. I'm sure we got like way more dolphins than we have before back in the 80s, right? All right. Okay, so let me read this. Dubai gold trade hit as Iran-Israel-U.S. conflict delays shipments. Bullion sold at $30 discount. Cheap gold, baby. We got some discounted gold in Dubai. Gold shipments remain stranded in Dubai following disruptions caused by ongoing conflicts between the U.S., Israel, and Iran, resulting in a partial closure of United Arab Emirates UAE airspace. While some bullion has been trading onto departing flights since midweek, many consignments are still delayed, Bloomberg News reported. Dubai's role as a key hub for refining and export bullion across Asia means these disruptions are reverberating throughout the global gold market. Asia meaning China and India. The extension of the Iran-related conflict into its 7th day is maintaining uncertainty and logistical challenges for exporters and buyers alike. So you got some oil on, gold on discount. As a result of these delays, traders in Dubai are offering gold at discounts compared to the global benchmark as they seek to move stuck inventory. Sources familiar with the matter, who declined to be named, told Bloomberg News that discounts are reaching as much as $30 an ounce below the London benchmark price. The decision to sell at reduced rates is driven by mounting storage and financing costs, especially as buyers hesitate to commit to new shipments without assurance of prompt delivery. So, all this stuff with oil and gas, it's the same problem. Some oil and gas companies don't care about this, but if you're locking up the Strait of Hormuz, it doesn't matter if there's $120 a barrel. If I can't ship out my oil, that's eventually going to hurt me. So this is why you're going to start seeing more and more companies of oil and gas that have too much exposure in the Gulf states do worse than the companies that are more based in America, right? All right, that's about it. So blah 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 blah. Any more of this stuff? Seems to be more issues here. Nearly 800 to 1,000 containers carrying agricultural produce from Maharashtra have been stranded in Dubai's Jebel Ali airport. So I guess someone has a bunch of corn or rice or something that's still stuck there. Oh, it's fruit. Oh shit. Well, all that stuff is probably gonna get rotten. Bananas, grapes, pomegranates, watermelons, onions, and leafy vegetables. Oh, yeah, well, too bad. Okay. Let's see what else here. So let me look at the central bank reserve gold here from 2020 to 2025. As you can see, China, Poland, Turkey, and India were the top 4 buyers of gold. Okay. Definitely China's important here because it wants to eventually get off the dollar system. So that's why it makes sense. Poland is pretty interesting because Poland is one of the best performing European Union countries in terms of GDP growth. So perhaps, they have enough spare cash to increase gold reserves for themselves. This will help stabilize any issues they might have in the future. So that's interesting. For Turkey, it makes sense because Turkey always has problems with inflation right now. So they need to have gold to balance that out. India just wants gold to, from a jewelry perspective. Everybody who's going to marry an Indian is going to have to pay out in gold for their dowry or whatever. Okay. Gold, power, and influence. How the UAE is shaping Sudan's war. So this is something I mentioned before. So let me get into more detail now. from this is straight from last year. This has been going on forever. Since fighting erupted in 2023 between the Sudanese army and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, the UAE has faced growing scrutiny over its alleged ties to the RSF. Sudan's government and armed forces have accused the UAE of providing support to the RSF. The RSF is based in Darfur, if you remember Darfur from 10 years ago. It was always a problem for the Sudanese. Okay. They have accused the UAE of providing support to the RSF in the civil war, while European officials say they have raised concerns with Abu Dhabi over reported backing for the militia. Allegations the Emirates denied. This week, the UN fact-finding mission said atrocities committed by the RSF in El Fasher, the capital of North Darfur and one of the last major cities in the region outside RSF control, or the hallmarks of genocide. Against that backdrop, attention has increasingly turned to the RSF's sources of funding. In a statement to RFI, the UAE Foreign Ministry said recent UN reports make no reference to the UAE and found no evidence implicating it in violations of international law in Sudan, dismissing such claims as baseless. It condemned atrocities committed by the RSF as well as by Sudanese authorities in Port Sudan, the army's de facto seat of government, and said Sudan's future should be secured through an independent civilian-led transition, free of both warring parties and extremist groups. At the heart of the controversy lies gold, a resource that has become central to both Sudan's war economy and Dubai's status as a global trading hub. For Abu Dhabi, engagement in Africa blends business interests with geopolitical ambition. For Sudan, it has become entangled in a wider regional contest of power, resources, and influence. So, yeah, Sudan broke off with South Sudan, and they have a lot of issues with them. And now they got this Darfur stuff. So, I think there was a video somewhere that talks more about this on YouTube. Maybe I'll find it one day. Mark Lavernier, emeritus researcher, director at the French National Center for Scientific Research, spoke to RFI about the economic and political links binding the Emirates to Sudan and the broader sub-region. At the outset, everything comes down to gold, and to Dubai, one of the 7 Emirates that constitute the UAE, Dubai is the world's largest gold market, and Sudan has immense reserves. It has become Africa's leading gold producer, ahead of South Africa. Gold is found across the vast territory of Sudan. You could almost say that you just have to bend down and pick it up. There are tens of thousands of artisanal miners, most of them not professionals, who come from all over Africa and the Sahel to scrape the soil. These miners are controlled by the RSF, collect the gold, and bypass the central bank and official channels. The gold is then flown directly to Dubai to be refined. This ensures the prosperity of the RSF and at the same time that of Dubai. That is precisely why the regular Sudanese army sought to regain control of these resources. It ordered the RSF to fall into line, to wear uniforms, adopt ranks, and submit to the authority of the generals who have ruled in Khartoum since independence in 1956, almost without interruption. Those generals, backed by Egypt and other militarized regimes, also need resources, not so much to develop the country, but to serve the interests of the army, the military institutions, and its officers. All right, I think that's good enough there. Okay, guys, we did it. I think almost 2 hours. All right, so gold is the play, but right now we're talking about liquid gold and oil. All right, so we'll have to see how this goes into next week, and let me get the this YouTube channel for you. I think so. This is John. Okay. Yeah, Arjan Sona. Okay. Channel. So if you want to learn more, you can go to his channel and find it out. So yeah, go to him, Arjan Sona, AJAHN TheUrbanLandord. Okay, so that's it. If you want to know about Theravada Buddhism, this is not my sect, but I think he does a very good job linking it to Western philosophy. So I think this will be a good introduction for you to learn his version of Buddhism. I think it's perfectly fine. So, and he'll talk some about Mahayana and other traditions, because he went through a lot of different types. He went through Zen and others, so he knows at least how to talk about it correctly. So Arjan Sona, if you're interested, go to him. And he talks pretty calm. So maybe if you want, you can 2x speed when you play his videos if you need to, and it'll be perfectly fine. Maybe it's like kind of insulting, but perfect. All right. Okay, guys. I'll see ya tomorrow. We'll have PCE inflation numbers, 8:30 Eastern Daylight Time, 1 hour before the open. That might crash the market. If it does, then we will have a nice red candle into the weekend. And then if something pops off in Iran over the weekend, then going into Persian New Year's, Nowruz, we will have something more pop off. And then, then you can buy the dip. Finally, right? We've been waiting so long to buy some kind of dip. That's the real dip. All right. Yeah. Good night.